chapter 8, and again, we do have business meeting tonight, so we'll keep this somewhat brief. And so we're going to start chapter 8, and chapter 8 starts us with the opening of the seventh seal. So we kind of have the picture back there of the seventh seal scroll. And so we've been through the end of chapter 6. We've spent a couple weeks on chapter 7. And so we kind of get lost in that point between the end of 6 and the beginning of 8. But all of that, in my belief, we're still in the sixth seal. And I'll go back and kind of cover some of that again. But I think it's good application to realize that it seems that we're still in the sixth seal time zone, so to speak, to try to keep a proper view of the book of Revelation. And we've gotten to chapter 8 now, and now the seventh and final seal of this scroll. And again, I was always taught the first view, which is the one on the left, but I kind of lean towards the one on the right now, that it's a scroll and it just continues, opens up, it gets to the second seal, breaks the second seal, it opens up. And that's kind of a new way. They've come across some history that's found something like that. And so there's no way to be absolute. It's just a couple ideas, a couple theories, and both are historically accurate. So there are seven seals, or there are scrolls that are sealed like the first one, and there are scrolls that's been found that's sealed like the second one. So there's no way to be exact on how that's happening, but the grammatical application as we read, it seems that one's open and you get some information, then another's open and you get some information, then another's open and you get some information, so on and so forth. And so for the last couple chapters, we've still been in that sixth seal time zone, so to speak. So Revelation chapter 8 is where we're at. So we're going to jump into it. Revelation chapter 8, verse 1. And when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And so it's kind of a unique things taking place there. Why is there silence in heaven? Well, there's been praising going on, right? I mean, we've seen the 24 elders, we've seen the four beasts, we've seen angels around the throne, and there's been this time of there's praising the Lord. The elders are throwing their crowns down before the Lord. They're lifting up, they're singing songs. And so there's something always kind of going on around the throne room. And so when he's there, where is the seventh seal? Well, the Lamb has the seventh seal, and they're in the throne room. And so we're still in this same setting, so to speak, and John's seeing all this, and now for 30 minutes or half an hour, there's silence. And again, speculation, and there's no exact understanding of what's going on there. But for me, something's about to happen. And I don't know, but when we have a moment of silence, what does that mean? It's kind of a memorial, right? We're going to have a time of moment of silence. And I just kind of lean towards, okay, it's about to get bad. There's going to be a moment of silence, and then there's half an hour. Well, what is a half an hour when it comes to eternity, right? It's just a short period of time. But right here in chapter 8 is kind of the first time we're kind of introduced since chapter 1 to a time frame. We go back to chapter 1 and we're introduced to the day of the Lord. The time is at hand at the beginning of Revelation chapter 1. We're seeing that day mentioned, but here it's at half an hour. And again, lots of people will look, and here I think I got a slide next, maybe. Here's the struggle, guys. The struggle is when you're looking at a prophetic text, how much liberty do we have of interpreting symbolism? So there can be no bounds if everything's symbolic, and therefore I hate to use the word imagination, but our imagination can run wild with what does this mean? And that's why you have so many different takes, so many different views, because there is tons of symbolism in the book of Revelation. But is this symbolic? There's where the debate's going to be. Is Revelation 8:1, is it symbolic? And that's why there's always going to be various opinions on that. So we're always taught to read it as literal unless it's obvious that it's not. But we're not in an obvious book. We're in a prophetic, symbolic book, right? So it becomes really a struggle. But throughout Scripture, so I've got a couple examples. So when words like as or like, and the King James Bible is full of it. When you see the words as or like, there's about to be an illustration, or as or like are usually used with similes. So there's something that's happened that's not actually what's happened, but it's similar. And so that's like a simile, as or like. And they're used to give off some symbolic language. Okay, so this is a great example. Jesus here, being in agony, prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was as. So when the Bible gives us that word as, it's a simile. He didn't actually bleed out great sweat drops of blood, but it was as if. So it's giving us a picture that he's in tremendous grief, as if he's bleeding out. It's a monumental grief that it's picturing that. But it's not literal, because it uses the word as. Therefore, we can easily conclude, okay, that's symbolic language there, okay? His sweat wasn't actually blood, but it was grieving sweat. I mean, it was just overwhelming sweat. So in many cases throughout Scripture, you have euphemisms, similes, metaphors, imagery, allegories, all throughout Scripture. And here's one in 1 Samuel. I know it's going to be kind of crude, but it's a euphemism, okay? So when Saul goes into the cave and he covered his feet, it's a euphemism. Right? All right, so if you don't know what it is, you're going to experience it this week. I promise you. All right, so it's just a euphemism. And that's what you love about the King James. It's blunt, but it's not crude. It uses euphemisms to get something across that we all are maybe not all, but most of us know what's going on there, right? When David goes in and cuts off the tunic or cuts off his robe. All right, so if you don't know, ask your husband when you get home, or ask your spouse when you get home, and they can explain what that euphemism is, all right? So, Revelation chapter 1 tells us right off the bat that this book is going to be filled with what's called signified, or is the root word for signs or signs. And so that's why the book of Revelation, in my opinion, is so difficult. And I really don't like when preachers get up and say the book of Revelation is simple. Y'all are making it so difficult. It's difficult because it's symbolic. It just is. And I just don't. Maybe I'm just the dumbest preacher on the planet. I don't know. I find the book very difficult because it is so symbolic. And so my struggle is where to take it literal and where is it symbolic. In Revelation 8:1 is that struggle, okay? Why is there silence in heaven? Does it mean more than there's just silence in heaven than 30 minutes? Is it simply saying there's only 30 minutes of silence in heaven? Or is that some symbolic thing for something? And it's a possibility because why? It's a symbolic book. It could be symbolic or it could just be literal. My opinion is just literal, and I'm going to give you why I lean towards it's just a literal reference of time, okay? So the sixth seal, we've already gone over. The sixth seal is represented as the day of the Lord. What is a day? It's 24 hours, okay? So I believe the day of the Lord's a literal day. We ended chapter 6, and we're in the sixth seal, chapter 6. The great day of his wrath is come. So we're just given a day there. We're still in the sixth seal. The first 5 seals, we're not given a timetable. They're just open. We're given a brief definition of kind of what's going on. Next seal's open. Brief definition of what's going on. Next seal. But when the sixth seal's open, we're basically given 2 chapters worth of information that's going on there. So we're still in the sixth seal, and we're still in the great day of his wrath. And then the 7th seal is open, and then there's another reference, and it's a half an hour. That's just my view of that, okay? So we looked at last week when we was going through Revelation chapter 7, that one thing that jumps out, okay, is the sealing of the 144,000, why they have to be sealed, what is their purpose, the struggle is, who are they, why do we need them, why is God sealing them? They're in heaven. I think that's pretty plain to figure out. They're in heaven, they're sealed in heaven, and then they're sent to earth. And while they're on earth, they're sealed so they won't be hurt by the wrath of God. Okay, that's pretty much the definition of it. And so notice verse 3. So we've connected before the 4 angels here and the 4 winds with Matthew chapter 24, and that's happening at the rapture. Matthew 24, the 4 angels, 4 winds are going to come and they're going to gather the elect. We see that taking place there, and so they're standing there ready. The end of chapter 6, the wrath of the Lamb has come. God says, hang on. Let me seal my 144,000 before. And so what is noted about hurting? Notice the end of verse 2. And I saw another angel from the east having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels. Now notice, what's the job of the 4 angels? To whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. So at Revelation 7:1, the trees haven't been hurt, the sea hasn't been hurt, and the earth hasn't been hurt by the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt them. And we looked at before through Old Testament scripture that the day of the Lord is signified by pouring the wrath out on the earth. Okay, we looked at multiple scriptures there. So we get back to Revelation 8:1 again, and we see that those have been sealed. Now the 7th seal is open. I'll jump over to Revelation chapter 9 now. This is the 5th trumpet, by the way. And it's mentioned in the 5th trumpet, which is the first 4 trumpets hurt the earth. We get to the 5th trumpet, and the angels, or the trumpet judgments, are going to turn from hurting the earth to hurting those who inhabit the earth. So we get to verse 4, and this is where the scorpions come out, and they're stinging, and people are wanting to die, but they cannot die. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. So we'll spend much more time on that when we get to chapter 9. But a couple things I want to point out. At this point, all the grass has been burned up. That happens in the first trumpet. So the grass has come back by that. So that's given us a time frame as well. So between the first trumpet and the 5th trumpet, there's been some time. Because in the first trumpet, all the grass gets burned up. So now we have grass back, but it tells us about these men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. The mention of the seal of God in their foreheads goes back to Revelation chapter 7, which is the 144,000. Okay? And some people make that application to those who are saved, but the connection, I believe, is to the 144,000 because it just mentions it in the preceding chapter. That's what's going on there. So, Revelation chapter 8, 1 again. Let me just read it. And when he'd opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. So if you want to go look to some Gospels, Luke and Matthew. So Luke chapter 17. And so again, another reason why I think it's just read it literally. There's silence for 30 minutes. And so verse 26 says, and as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the Son of Man. They did eat, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage until that day, or until the day. Now, is that a particular day? Absolutely. It's the day that Noah entered into the ark. So, the day that Noah gets in the ark, what happens? The flood comes, okay? So the flood comes, and it destroyed them all. And not only does Jesus give us the picture of Noah, now he's going to give us the picture of Lot. Likewise also, as in the days of Lot, they did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded, but the same day, it's not symbolic, it's a day, it's the day that Lot went out of Sodom. Wasn't a week later, wasn't a year later, it was that day. Notice, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. We've made time and time again the sixth seal in making that connection with the day of the Lord. That's the day Jesus is going to be revealed. So it makes sense for me that 8:1 just immediately gives us, there's a 30-minute time frame here, making us realize we're still in that day. God's given us a thought here that we're still in that day of the Lord, okay? Even thus shall the day of the Son of Man be revealed, okay? So Matthew chapter 24, this is the same parallel to Luke 17. It says, but of that day, and notice, an hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father also. But as the days of Noah were, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating, drinking, marrying, giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark. Okay? And knew not until the flood came and took them all away, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. So Jesus gives us these two illustrations from factual biblical history that the day Noah entered the ark, judgment came. The day Lot left Sodom, judgment came. Okay? So the same day the righteous were rescued, the world was judged. Right? That's what Jesus just tells us in that day. And in fact, what happened with Lot? Did Lot leave willingly? Drug out of there by a bunch of angels. Matthew 24, just prior to that, the elect are going to be taken out with a bunch of angels, right? The same picture. So back to again to Revelation 8:1 again. So that's why I lean towards this. Just look at it literal. The half an hour is just a reminder that we're still in that day. We're still the day of the wrath of the Lord is come. But God said, hang on. Let me seal my guys before we pour all this out. So you got Revelation chapter 7 going on. You got the rapture, I believe, in Revelation 7 going on, the picture there. And you have all that matching up perfectly with Luke 17 and Matthew 24. And now we get to Revelation chapter 8. And now it's the seventh seal. The 144,000 have been sealed. The righteous and the elect have been removed from the earth. And it's that same day, there's silence in heaven. There's a space of half an hour. Why? Because I believe God's about to pour it out on the earth. And that's what we read in the next few verses now. So when he'd opened the seventh seal, silence in heaven, space of a half an hour, and I saw the seven angels which stood before God, and to them were given seven trumpets. Which, grammatically, if we read that, do they have the seven trumpets in verse 1? They don't have them yet. They don't get these trumpets until the seventh seal is opened. That's the way I'm reading it. That's grammatically correct. When he had opened the seventh seal, there's silence in heaven about the space of half an hour, and I saw the seven angels which stood there. He sees them standing there, and to them were given seven trumpets. So they don't have the seven trumpets, which I believe are trumpet judgments, which begin to pour out the wrath of God. Because in Revelation chapter 7, God said, wait, let me seal, let me remove my elect, and now he's about to pour out his wrath. All right. And so the reason I point that out is because it's a struggle to try to match these trumpets up. And you can take and try to put these trumpets and put them in. So the struggle, I think, of Revelation is the time frame. How do you fit all this together? And it becomes a real struggle. But grammatically, it fits that the angels have not received the trumpets yet till the seventh seal is open. And here, notice there's a couple more scriptures to kind of give foundation to that. In verse 6 now, and the seven angels which had the seven trumpets prepared themselves to sound. So as of verse 6, they still haven't sounded. They're preparing to sound. So they haven't blown the trumpets yet. And so when we get down to verse 13, we're looking at, because Revelation chapter 8 is the first four trumpets, so when we get down to the end of the chapter, we see that the last three have still not sounded. So it's given us the picture that the seven angels have not been given the seven trumpets till the seventh seal is open, and then one by one, they blow their trumpet judgment, and that happens after the seventh seal is open, okay? And I lay all that out because there's no specific scripture that tells us that the trumpets are the wrath. There are for the vials. There's no denying that the vials that we'll get to in later on in the book are the wrath of God. But when you make the connection to what is the wrath, that God's going to pour it out on the earth, what we're about to see is these trumpet judgments are going to come out on the earth. And so we're going to kind of set the stage for the rest of it. And so notice he says, and another angel came and stood at the altar. He has a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it, notice this, with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar, which was before the throne. So if we put our memory cap on, and we go back to the fifth seal. The fifth seal was the martyrs. They are under the altar saying, how long, O God? How long? When are you going to pour out your wrath on the earth and on those who persecuted us to death? How long? And so, notice the picture that we have here. The prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne, the smoke of this incense which came with the prayers of the saints ascended up before God out of the angel's hand, and the angel took the censer, filled it with the fire of the altar, cast it into the earth. And that's the picture of now the wrath of God being started to be poured out upon the earth. There were voices, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake. And so when we look at that, I just see the trumpets as the beginning of the pouring out, and what you'll see is thirds taking place, third of the trees being burned, and so on and so forth. And we'll get into that next week. But when I look at Revelation chapter 8, I see it just as the seventh seal. The seventh seal is the revelation of God's wrath being poured out. Revelation 6, the end of Revelation 6, and the sixth seal tells us the wrath is here. Revelation 7, God says, hang on, not just yet. A couple things we got to do. We got to seal the 144,000 so they don't get hurt. And there's got to be this great multitude all of a sudden brought up into heaven, which seems to picture and make a perfect parallel to the rapture taking place in Revelation chapter 7. Get to Revelation chapter 8, boom. The seventh seal is open. The trumpets are given to the seven angels, and they prepare themselves to blow, and each one blows. The first four blow, there's the third part of the earth is going to get hurt until we get to the fifth, and then their attention turns to the inhabitants of the earth. And so we'll look at that next week. We'll jump into that. Revelation chapter 8 and verse 6, the seven angels will prepare to blow their trumpets. All right.